Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our listeners out there in podcast land. This is Jo coming to you from the She Compass Show. I'm here with Helen. We are on another episode of Pointing North, and we want to thank you for joining us. Today, we have a kind of a sensitive topic, if you will, to talk about, although, as you know, we try to be pretty forthcoming about anything that we think has to do with helping women be better to themselves and others. But this is a particular topic that is a little bit close to home for both Helen and I, and we both have a couple of personal stories that we want to share about this. But we want to talk a little bit about women's reproductive disorders. There are some things that we both are challenged with, and we are happy to share our stories, and we hope you want to follow along with us and that the information that we give you, you will find useful. So the first thing that I want to talk about is something called a pelvic organ prolapse. Now, there was an article that was printed in the New York Times earlier this year, and I want to read a little bit of a definition of what that is for the folks that may not be familiar with that. The New York Times refers to it as the sagging of one's cervix and vaginal wall toward the vaginal opening. 50% of women will develop some form of it over time, and most women don't get symptoms until it has progressed. The most common symptom is the feeling that something is falling out, but it's important to note that a pelvic floor spasm, which in many ways is an opposite condition, can cause the same sensation. So at this point, I want to talk a little bit about it and let Helen come in, because this is something that she's had some personal experience with, and I wanted her to share her story about the impact that a pelvic organ prolapse has had on her life. Helen, do you want to talk a bit about that?
Sure. No problem. This is something that impacted my life in a very personal way. But it is, let me tell you the story of how we got there, because I never really noticed anything was going on until I started having cramps in my vaginal area and trying to figure out, like, where were these cramps coming from? And when I would have my menstrual cycles would be pretty horrific when I was working, and just kind of going through it and working so hard all the time and not really taking the time to go to the doctor. Now, let me tell you, ladies out there, just for health's sake, when something happens to you, whether you're younger or older, you really must take the time to take care of yourself. I was in a vicious cycle of working 7 days a week, working 16-hour days, and really just putting my health problems to the side. So that by the time I did go to check it out, what I was really told is that I had fibroids. And so this is common. Fibroids are very common among African American women. So that is something that we need to make sure we consider as taking care of our health ahead of time, because even if it doesn't ward off what's going to happen in the first place, maybe I feel like I would have caught this earlier. Maybe there would have been something else that could have been done. But anyway, by the time I did catch it, the fibroids were about the size of a grapefruit, and they told me I had maybe 3 of them. So immediately I knew that I had to start preparing myself and making preparations for surgery. So, me and my doctor get together. We talked about it. We talked about pretty much what stage I was in that whole situation, how to bring together a surgery to get rid of the fibroids. Now, I wasn't really aware of the prolapse at the time because, as I said in the article that Jo read, there's usually you're feeling like something's hanging. And at that time, I didn't have that part of it until maybe about 4 weeks later, I started noticing that part. So I went back to the doctor to have him check that as well. And he said that I had what was called a vaginal prolapse, and that it was very common amongst women. I asked him what was it, because I had babies a long time ago. My son was 10 pounds. My daughter was 9. So I was trying to figure out, did it have something to do with childbirth, or what was, creating this prolapse? And the scientific answer, I guess, was that women commonly just get this, and it can be for any number of reasons. So, I said, oh, wow, okay, so double jeopardy, I have this now. And he said, but there's a way to fix that. And they offered what was called a sling at the time. And I'll tell you about what I found out about that. But I did refuse that and just said, let's just fix this problem with the fibroids. So we made a date to have the surgery for the fibroids. And by that time, if you're having your monthly periods, they're getting very heavy. I talked to my doctor about that as well, too. And he said that was common amongst having the fibroids in the uterus area. And that was what was causing most of the cramping and more of the excessive bleeding. So by the time, I had spoken to other women that had been through this before. And so I was pretty much prepared and wasn't really afraid of the surgery. Just wanted to get the fibroids out and make sure that at that time, which was about maybe, 12 years ago, that I could get things under control. Here's the scary part. When you go in for a surgery and you're expecting that one thing is going on, it's supposed to be a pretty much in and out surgery. You get rid of the fibroids, you stay in the hospital maybe 1 or 2 days, and they make sure that there's nothing else there. So when he went in to do the surgery, we had a pretty much like a 911, because what they had found, and this is, I'm so happy I'm talking to you women out there so you can know, because he wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for anything. I didn't even know this kind of thing could happen. But the fibroids weren't only in the uterus. They had grown into my back area. So they weren't detectable on the ultrasound that they give you to detect where they are, because you're not thinking about the back area. You're just thinking about the uterus. And one had formed in the uterus about the size of a 10-pound baby. And that was in my back. I did lose a lot of blood, and it was, to the family, pretty traumatic, because they were waiting for me. And my daughter said, I automatically knew when they called Code Blue that it was you. So everybody started to panic. So they're going through this panic, and I'm just asleep because I don't know what's going on. So by the time I woke up, I looked up and I seen my daughter standing over me, and she was crying, and I was waking up from a sleep like nobody's business. I felt so good because, like I said, I've been working 16-hour days and just going strong, and it felt like I'm getting this great sleep. So when I did wake up and they explained to me, and I started talking to my doctor, and he said, I asked him, how could something like this happen? And he said, well, it happens. And I'm thinking to myself, if this happens, why aren't you testing women in the, in that vaginal area and the back? Because if people have had this before, that could happen to someone. So my case was pretty severe, but not too common. But it's a great thing that I'm talking to you ladies out there today, because if this becomes something that may happen to you, you want to check all areas of your body, because I didn't know that. But the great thing about it is I spent about, a week in the hospital. And, my sister was there for me every day. She never left the hospital. And, I didn't tell my mom, because my mom has high blood pressure. I knew she was going to respond in a bad way. So by the time I did, I had the thing like, why didn't you tell anybody? Because something like this could happen. And, why put people through it? But here's the thing that I'm really happy that I didn't do, was the vaginal sling, because later on, they had this big commercial about women who had the vaginal slings who either had very bad infections, experienced, or even died.
I think they were using the vaginal mesh as the material, right? And they were saying that
right.
was the thing that was causing the complications, right?
Yeah, but also they found out the people that were making the mesh, that just big lawsuits all over the place. Wow. Because it shouldn't have been done. And actually, the surgery remedied the problem, because I don't have the prolapse anymore. So I'm lucky, blessed that I just went the other way. Even if you don't feel anything, always go in for your checkups and check yourself. We are hardworking women these days, especially in 2019, where women are soaring to the top of every game, breaking through barriers that we didn't even know we could break through. And all of that's wonderful, but we're still women, and our bodies respond different than men. We have different, stress kills us faster. We have heart attacks and we don't survive them. sometimes we put ourselves last. We have to make sure that at the same time we're taking care of our physical health. That day I felt very blessed, and I felt, God was looking over me. I had an angel looking over me because I wasn't supposed to survive that. The way the doctor explained to me, I was losing blood so fast that they couldn't even, remedy all the loss.
And then for us on the family side, as Helen mentioned, we were there when the doctor came out and told us what he was dealing with. And the first thing for me, one of the initial reactions that I had was that I was prepared for him to say, she's gone. We did everything we could. I was waiting for the whole sort of, sentence and reaction and all that kind of thing. But he did a great job in not only, sharing with us the difficulty that he had in the surgery, but explaining what he found and why it was a challenge and what we all needed to do from there. And I think Helen's point is 100% correct, that we need, with all the things that are going on in our life, we have to keep our health top of mind, and we do have to make sure that we visit our doctors regularly for whatever checkups and physicals and things of that nature that we need, because that's something that, as she said, it was something that she knew she had to take care of, but she put off for a while, and pretty soon it was a situation where everybody was surprised by what they found when they went in. And I think the other thing we want to say is that, the information that we're sharing here is our experience and what we've done, and that's one more reason why you want your relationship with your physician to be top of mind, and to be something that you take care of and take into your own hands, and make sure that it becomes something that you continue to pursue, because they have your ultimate best health in mind, and they have the science and all of your medical records and things of this nature. So you always want to make that final decision with your physician so that you are taking the best care of your health that you can. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Finding Our She Compass is now a silver medalist in the Illumination Book Awards. The Illumination Book Awards are designed to bring recognition to the best in books for readers searching for inspiration and answers to life's questions. The book also received dual category honorable mention from the San Francisco Book Awards. Winners of this award are selected by a judging staff of authors, publishers, journalists, agents, and directors who present the awards based on, according to the awards, general excellence, the author's passion for telling a good story, and potential of the work to reach a wider audience. It's available on Amazon, or you can go to our website, shecompass.com, and click on the Buy the Book and More page. Join Helen on the Dyslexia Quest, a podcast featuring interviews with the leading experts in the field of intelligence, learning, flourishing, and neurodiversity, as well as profiling uber-successful dyslexics to share their story and wisdom. Helen's show opened Dyslexia Quest's new season, and she's looking forward to talking to you about her own battle with dyslexia. On Helen's appearance, the host writes, quote, "Helen Owens blew me away. She is one of the most powerful guests I've ever had. She holds presence, confidence, and an inner sense of radiance. If you are looking for an inspiring story that will have you connected to your innate power, your capacity to create, that will have you inspired about human potential, this is your episode. I have a feeling this is going to be one of our all-time listener favorites," end quote. You don't want to miss this show, and you can help support this podcast that shines a light on neurodiversity. We'll have a link to this show ready for you in the show notes. We're excited to announce Helen's latest speaking engagement. Helen will join the ladies of Believe, Inspire, Grow in Chatham Township, New Jersey on Friday, August 9th, 2019 at 10 a.m. for an inspiring talk on how she overcame the challenges of severe dyslexia and dysgraphia, poverty, teenage pregnancy, and the loss of her hair as a child to become a successful business owner and author of the 3-time award-winning book, Finding Our She Compass, 15 Life Lessons for Women Voyaging Toward Restoration, Reconstruction, and Renewal. Please join us for a great day of conversation, fellowship, and encouragement. For more details on the event and to learn how to become a member of Believe, Inspire, Grow, also known as BIG, contact Kathy Maloney at cmaloney1@verizon.net. That's CMALONEY1 the number 1, at verizon.net. You can also visit the website at believeinspiregrow.com. And we'll also have links to the contact information and website for Believe, Inspire, Grow in our show notes for this episode. We look forward to seeing you there. Now back to the show.
We have children, we have family, we have our businesses that we're running, or if we're not running our own businesses, we're working for someone in another business and we're working very hard to be successful. But to be 100% successful is to be taking care of yourself at every level. If there's anybody out there right now, any woman out there right now that may be experiencing some of the same symptoms, please don't wait. And even if you're not experiencing them, have your regular checkups, your physicals. Make sure, because ever since then, I make sure that I get my physicals all the time. I'm getting older. I get my mammograms. I get, because you don't know. If you can catch something early, there's always a better chance for you. And then a woman being over my 50s now, I really need to be paying extra special attention to what's going on with my body, because we usually can always feel it. We're our own best doctors, but usually we just kind of wipe it off, say, oh, I had a little cramp here, a little cramp there, I had a pain here, a pain there. Maybe that's just because I'm getting older, and I'll just let that go. But you must check yourself out. And not only my experience, I've had so many other experiences with women in the salon where we've detected so many different things going on with people just by paying attention to their bodies.
That's true. Hairstylists are the first line of defense when it comes to medical health. You've run into that situation quite a bit.
Hairdressers they keep so many secrets, and they give out good advice. People really respect you and look up to you, and they trust you in ways that they don't trust a lot of people. People need a safe place to say something. And these days, we don't have a lot of sanctuary places where we can say anything that may not get retold to hurt us. So we must be the gatekeepers for that. And, keep in mind, with women's health is very important. If you're having any kind of symptoms, if they're not these and just anything else, just, get a physical, get yourself checked out and make sure that there's nothing wrong. Don't be afraid, because the bigger point is that if you're afraid, sometimes we wait and it's too late. Our fears stop us from doing lots of things that we would otherwise do. We would do for other people, but we won't do them for ourselves.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, Helen. I know that there's a lot of women out there that are going to benefit from hearing your truth. I think that when we are forthcoming with our stories, they really do benefit other people. Other people can learn and grow from them. So I want to share my story with my battles with something called premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I'm going to give you the same definition, or I'm going to give you the definition from the same article from the New York Times. And they refer to premenstrual dysphoric disorder as a severe form of PMS, but PMDD, which is the acronym for premenstrual dysphoric disorder, generally includes severe depression, irritability, and tension. Like PMS, it starts a week or two before your period and ends abruptly when your period ends. And that's true. I will tell you that this is something I've been battling since I was a teenager. I'll kind of give you the way I sort of saw things. When I would get my period, what I noticed is that I seemed to be the only person that was having severe difficulty with it. Not only physically, but emotionally. My anger levels and frustration levels were much worse than anybody else. The pain levels in my body, I'd watch other people, that they could be on their period, and as I used to joke around with other people, they could be on their period and go to the beach with one or two tampons, and that was the end of it. And they, walking around in a bikini looking cute. They had no problems with it. And when my period would come on, I would be doubled over in pain, so much so that it would be difficult for me to even get out of bed. I remember in some cases that my body temperature would be so low, I'd have to put on 2 and 3 layers of clothing, regardless of the temperature outside that it was. And then with the irritability issues, I was constantly frustrated, crying all the time. It didn't make any sense. I was a person that was relatively well balanced, and I couldn't understand why everything was so difficult to deal with. And then I looked into this research about this thing called PMDD. And I started reading more about it and trying to figure out why some women reacted to their periods the way that they did and others didn't. And as I started reading more about the hormonal imbalance and understanding how progesterone and estrogen work together and why some people had more or less and what was going on, it started to make sense. Everything from the pain in my body to my irritability to these intense cravings for sweets and carbohydrates. In some cases, I would eat, a meal, a full meal, and 10 minutes later, I couldn't remember if I'd eaten or not because there was no sense of full feeling. There was just this constant feeling of being over bloated and uncomfortable. So there was no way to really distinguish whether or not you were hungry or not. All of your signals were getting crossed and your wires were crazy. And again, I couldn't figure out why that was happening to me and no one else. Everybody else that I knew that was menstruating, it just wasn't a big deal. They could go and do anything they wanted to do. But for me, it meant planning my entire life around it. And so as I got a little older, I lived with it. I must admit, I lived with it for several years because I just thought, well, this is the way it is. Unfortunately, I'm a person that has to deal with difficult challenges during my menstrual cycle, and that's just the way it has to be. But as I got older and did more research, I started realizing that maybe there is a way to try to manage this hormonal imbalance. So for me, one of the things that helped me greatly was birth control. The strongest levels of birth control that you could get. Now, it had to be. It's not something I was able to insert, or because I was constantly in pain in my vaginal area. So it had to be something that I could take orally, some kind of oral medication. And I would say probably 2 to 3 weeks after I started taking it, right around my second cycle, I could feel a little bit of the edge coming off. Suddenly, my menstrual period would come on and I would be able to, I had a little pain, but not a lot. A little bit of emotional challenges here and there, but nothing more than an average person would, feeling a little bit blah today, as it were. And certainly the physical pain that I was in, the extreme pain really lessened up a lot. So at that point you had a little cramping here and a little cramping there, and you kind of took a Tylenol and went on about your day. It was a complete 180 in terms of the way that I felt and the comfort level that I was able to get back. I started to really feel like myself. And of course, the way that I was able to access the birth control was by talking to my doctor. So just like Helen was saying earlier, it's so important to have that connection with your OBGYN or your physician or whoever that person may be, nurse practitioner, whatever the case is, whoever your medical person is that is helping you maintain your best physical health. You want to be willing to be as open and ask as many questions as you can. I talked a little bit about this on the podcast back in January, I believe it was, when we talked a little bit about weight loss and how everybody's weight journey is different because our bodies are so incredibly different. And I think that this situation that Helen and I are talking about, her situation with her prolapse was not only a prolapse, but it was also a fibretic situation. So she had all kinds of things going on. And if she hadn't taken the time to really own her medical diagnosis, then you become kind of a guinea pig in somebody else's hands. Whereas if you take the time and say, hey, I need answers, then you're the one driving your health. And that's really what I did, because I was not going to be willing to settle for the fact that everybody else is, 16, 17, 19, 21, and their periods are not taking over their life. That must mean that there's something wrong in my body that I should not have to live with. So right around the time that I was 20, I'd say 20 or 21 or so, most of high school I had challenges because I just did not know what was hitting me or where to go to try to figure it out. But as I got older, moved to college and started living on my own, that's when I started thinking, you know what, maybe there's something to this. And so birth control saved my life. I'm still on it to this day. It's funny. I'm happy to share this with you. I had a discussion with my doctor not too long ago, and one of the nurse practitioners had suggested that, well, maybe we want to ease your birth control levels down a little bit because everyone knows I'm Generation X, so menopause is, it's starting to knock on the door. And she had suggested that maybe you want to lower your birth control levels. And I said, no way. I gave them it's funny, I did give them the opportunity, and everything changed. And I came back, a couple months later, I said, this is not working. Give me back the stuff I know, because I'm not feeling like myself. And I know if I keep going with these lower levels of medication, something is going to go wrong. So, menopause, hey, you're just going to have to wait because I've got to be in a situation where I feel 100% comfortable. So again, I think it's really important to take control of your health and be forthcoming, and to know that if it doesn't feel right, just like Helen said earlier, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And 9 times out of 10, there's an answer. We just have to be willing to look for it.
Yes. So on that note, this show is about women and taking care of women in every form and issue. And sometimes we have to share our deepest secrets so that we can help women get through these tumultuous storms, because we are, big advocates for women's rights and women in general. So as I said, sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper inside to be sharing your own personal experience, because there's a lot of people out there who are going through what you've been through, or probably going to go through what you have been through. Take care of yourself. Make sure you take care of your health. Take care of your mental, because we have a lot of mental issues going on right now, because people are on overload. And sometimes we don't even realize how bottled down we are with so many things in life just coming at us. We talk about that all the time, and our health has to be the number one thing, because without that, we can't do what we love to do. So take care of yourself out there, women. That is the number one priority, has to be you first, because you have to assist yourself to be able to assist others.
Amen. Couldn't agree with that more. And so I want to thank all of our listeners out there today that have been joining us and have joined us on previous episodes. We love having you. We so appreciate you joining us for these chats. And as you know, if you'd like to leave us any feedback, we would love a review from you. Feel free to share any and all comments that you would love to share with us. We'd love to hear them. And you can also reach us on social media for any feedback that you might have. As you know, we're on Instagram at shecompass.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at shecompass and on Facebook at shecompass. And of course, if you want to send us any messages through our website, you know where to find us at shecompass.com. So thanks once again, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a wonderful day.